Chapter 31. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. I heard the voice of the one the green skins called, the god of the battlefield. Impressive. You gave your first impressions to your opponents. A rare species has been unlocked. You have ranked up. Please select between the following classes. 1. Intermediate Orc Gladiator, 2. High Orc Gladiator, rare. Ancient Orc Gladiator, good. It would have been great if my unique ability had also awakened, but it seemed I was still lacking a bit. However, this wasn't bad at all. Though I haven't properly confirmed the information, the rare option looks quite good. Of course, it didn't mean special classes or rare species would unquestionably make you stronger, but it also didn't hurt to check it out. This group was already in a devastated state after the collapse of the magic swordsman, Kim Dong-hyun. Seeing a few standing still, it seemed the majority of us had also leveled up. The whole clan had grown one step forward. It wasn't a fluke though. The battle against those evil beasts after the tutorial, the warrior exam which made our physical bodies become stronger and sturdier, the training with the Green Goblin clan, and lastly the fight that just occurred in the spider graveyard. The green skins stopped staring blankly into the sky after they noticed me running forward and began to shout. Koreak for Blood Dagger. As if on cue, and that voice was a signal, the rest of the absent-minded green skins woke up from their dazes and began chanting as well. 4. For Blood Dagger. I waved my hand towards the first and second to come. Koreak. Did you hear the voice of the god of the battlefield? Yes, I did, Captain. The first answered while the second nodded his head. If I was just a bit late, I might have raised this precious talent into an assassin. With a long sigh of relief, I spoke again. An orc swordsman. An orc swordsman suits you. Koreak. To be honest, I was worried the moment I'd finished speaking. It was the first time that I had decided another's path. Everyone was already becoming stronger in their own way, and the effectiveness was already being displayed. I could feel it just from the 3 goblin-warrior siblings. It wasn't like they would be weaker if they had chosen the path of an assassin, but they were impressive warriors. Outstanding. If they were to grow as swordsmen, they would be able to break through the enemy front lines with just a sword. They were different from me. These guys have talent. After concluding my remark, they began to stare at me. I wasn't sure how they took it, but they were extremely moved. Soon, these guys began to pound their chests and chant. For Blood Dagger. For Blood Dagger. Shortly after, their bodies began to twist. A large sword that seemed to be for swordsmen soon appeared for both of them. It seemed they had received the basic equipment after the evolution. Unlike the swords of the humans, this orc sword was quite huge. It seems they have taken my advice positively. No, they weren't just simply accepting this advice positively, rather they were extremely joyful to have received this kind of suggestion. After the class change, the two raised their swords and began to shout. Whoa! Blood Dagger has opened up a new road. This is precisely that new road. Koreak, then. The shouts of those guys unintentionally decided the basic direction of this clan. All the other green skins that had selected the paths of assassins and archers prior were all suddenly beginning to rank up into swordsmen. For Blood Dagger. For Blood Dagger. I couldn't help but be flustered. I must definitely ask MEV later why I was receiving so much trust, as if I was the subject of worship. But that would only come after. I began to stare at these guys that were ridiculously swayed. The Hobgoblin warriors that were waiting to rank up into Hobgoblin assassins had all chosen to evolve into Orc warriors. The chances of them evolving into swordsmen like the first or second was extremely high. At first I was flustered, but calculating the ratios, it wasn't as bad as I thought. There was only Young Haeyeon as our magician, but taking the future into consideration, this group consisting of swordsmen, assassins, and archers, had quite destructive power. Thinking of nearly all of the green skins that would evolve into meat shields in Goth Clan 3 years later, I concluded that it was fine. Even if Young Heian would impede the movements of those guys a little, the much more agile swordsmen would be able to split their bodies in half. Though they were all imaginations. It wouldn't hurt to attempt it. After the rest had more or so completed their evolutions, I began to look at the surroundings. There were no survivors. The funny thing was that despite all the loud noises, there were no adventurers that came as reinforcements. Had they all fled? Rather, the spiders began rushing in, so my clan members began fighting, but there were no other dangers that could occur, I think. The information slowly begun to materialize in my head. Rare. Ancient Orc Gladiator. The Ancient Orc is an orc that existed during the ancient times of the continent. These orcs loved to fight more than the average creatures and were additionally reckless by nature. They do not rely on spells or magic, as these orcs only rely on their weapons and bodies as they head into battle. Their bodies endured countless magic and spells, allowing magic to be imbued into their bodies in response. Weapon proficiency increases. Good. I couldn't help but tighten my fist while reading the information. Choosing this wouldn't mean that I would immediately get stronger, but that body was clearly superior to what I had currently. Even evolving into a high orc wouldn't show as much effectiveness as this one. But, just in case, I opened the information of the high orc. Soon, the information regarding the high orc began to rain down in my mind. High Orc Gladiator. Among the orcs that love fighting, these brave orcs are a race specifically created for that. It may be just that, but there's no denying that the high orcs are a superior race to the orcs. They are stronger and a bit faster than the average orc. Occasionally, if they fought for a long time, they entered a frenzy state. This wasn't bad either, but was incomparable to the ancient orc. Although quite small, the endowed magic was extremely helpful. It was a situation worth dancing to, just from the fact that it can resist those weak magic and spells. And that option of increased weapon proficiency was extremely suitable to a gladiator. In other words, this option would aid me in developing into the direction I wanted. Koreak. There was no more time to spare. I decided to evolve into the ancient orc in a breath's time. My body began to change a bit. For instance, my image didn't change greatly from the original orc, but I could feel my height growing by a slight amount. But I could feel my muscles, flesh and bones greatly changing. They weren't swelling like the muscles I had when evolving from a goblin to a hobgoblin, and a hobgoblin to an orc. Rather, they were maintaining their original states. However, I could feel that new muscles were relentlessly taking form within me. My flesh was becoming firm, and my bones were becoming much harder. It was the same for my fang as well. It was, bit by bit, but still growing like Chief Patriarch Agar's. Koreak. I tightened my fist. The difference wasn't alarming, but I had become a bit stronger. Nevertheless, among all that, the important aspect was that I had received a vessel. The perfect body born for battle. It was a body so perfect that even an outsider wouldn't be able to find any flaws. As I wiggled my body, I felt more control over it. Resembling a well-made sword. No, a very well-made, great sword. I had realized that now I have finally received the vessel that I could personally strengthen in earnest. Finally, I was on the same level as those geniuses who were considered to be out of specification. Koreak. I want to test it. It wasn't just me, but everyone's eyes reddened as they stared towards my direction. The spiders were almost all killed. Though I wasn't exactly sure, but there was most likely a party that had heard and seen the battle, if they had escaped successfully to report this to the city. From here to the western city AIA, if they fled as fast as they could, it would take roughly about half a day. I still had some time. As such, I began to move my body. The rest followed me as well. As if they knew what I wanted to do, they quickly began to move. My pace increased as I began to run. Frankly, it was a bit uncomfortable running with a great sword before. But now, it didn't feel like that. How strange. It was as if the sword was one with me. I was finally able to realize the feeling when I fought against the Queen of the North and her spear. This orc body, that had always waged into the battlefield with weapons, was now perfectly suitable for this great sword. It was the same for the long sword and a dagger. Thanks to the high degree of proficiency, I had somewhat felt what it was like to be those martial artists in manhwa, though that's a bit of an exaggeration. Our group moved fast. Our archers killed the spiders that appeared here and there. The first and second of the loyal 5 siblings cleared away the annoying ones that attacked from the left and right. These guys were definitely strong. It seemed that the chemistry between them and the swordsman class was best option as I'd thought. But, this wasn't important at the moment. I strengthened my grip on my sword intentionally. I did not want to offer this first blow to a mere spider. As we continued to delve further in, we saw a group. It was a checkpoint where many adventurers gathered to rest. We did not advance stealthily. Of course, it would be advantageous in the dark. It would be much more effective for us. But we wanted to test ourselves. Qua. Wah. The screams that burst out of their mouths. In an instant, the human side became extremely noisy. Grab your weapons. Fight. The screams aimed at us were something like that. Monsters. Foo. Fuck, it's an orc. There are hobgoblins and orcs. Prepare for battle. Prepare for battle. The checkpoint installed in this dungeon was much more thoroughly protected, it seems. Soon, the arrows from their archers began to fly towards us. But, we blocked it. I flicked away the bothersome arrows. It was the same for those clansmen that just evolved into swordsmen. They were able to flick away the incoming arrows as well with one sweep of their swords. Entangle. The moment I heard Young Hei Eon, who had just recently evolved, speak, roots popped out from the ground. While the roots were grabbing those humans, I reached out to the man with the large shield first. Strength flowed through my body. My arms, shoulders and legs were occupied with strength as I struck towards the man in front. For some odd reason, I felt I could penetrate the man's shield. I swung my great sword. Quajik. That sound reverberated as the man in the shield broke, causing him to be split instantaneously into 2, from head to toe. Qua. As such, the night in the spider graveyard passed by. TL afterward. Teaser for CH32, the reason why I am following Blood Dagger. Well. It's been too long. I don't want to think about it as well. Girac. Girac. Probably because he had gifted me gold coins much more than anyone else. Girac. Is it not so? That's the kind of tribe that the Green Goblin clan always was. Green Goblin, TL afterward, welcome FR34 Axe to the squad. Woo. PSCH 32 teacher. The reason why I am following Blood Dagger. Well. It's been too long. I don't want to think about it as well. Girac. Girac. Probably because he had gifted me gold coins much more than anyone else. Girac. Is it not so? That's the kind of tribe that the Green Goblin clan always was. Green Goblin, comment. Yup. The female goblin that uses a longsword is indeed an intermediate greatsword warrior. Guess she learned it from MCXD notice. Due to a question based on the terminology of the word saint swords, I thought long and hard. What would make it less awkward? Holy knights. Sacred. Saint. But, I finally found a term I really like, and matches with the translation. Paladin. From now on, Saint Sword will be replaced with the term Paladin. And the Saint Knights Order will be replaced as Holy Order. PR afterward Psi 101. LMAO. A huge WLCOME. To FR34KZ, whom will also be a PR for our mighty TL. Calvis. FR34KZ, greetings plebeians, your emperor has arrived. No, seriously guys. Psi 101, why aren't they bowing to this king? Ah. Translator. Calvi's proofreaders. Psi 101, FR34KZ. Chapter 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The reason why I am following Blood Dagger is... well. It's been too long. I don't want to think about it as well. Giric. Probably because he has gifted me so much gold coins, much more than anyone else. Giric. Is it not so? That's the kind of tribe that the Green Goblin clan always was. Green Goblin, you've become strong. You've become stronger. Giric. Green Goblin said after seeing me return from battle in the morning. I replied, with just a nod. I was extremely elated after the battle since we had successfully looted the humans thoroughly. Especially after retrieving the black magic that coursed through the sword, it made the sword livelier, so I gave it to the first of the 5 siblings, who had attained the most achievements in battle. He seemed satisfied, despite the sword being between a dagger and a short sword size. Wise. He'll probably be bragging, more so that he had received a sword from Blood Dagger than directly using it. Thanks to this, my image of being a trustworthy chief solidified, and his loyalty became stronger. But the problem was, there wasn't a lot of gold coins in the pockets of those beginners. I threw the leather pouch out in front of Green Goblin. To be honest, there was probably more silver coins than gold coins, but I assumed that he would be delighted with just that. My assumption was confirmed after he became extremely elated after opening the pouch. Giric. Despite being surrounded by that many gold coins, to be delighted with just that, I couldn't help but laugh at the Green Goblin's endless greed. The required quantity isn't there, so my apologies. However, I will prepare even more gold coins for you next time. No. Giric. I never imagined that you would bring so many sparkling objects, for one that had just entered this place. Giric. I am pleased that you speak of me like that. Giric. Anyways, how was it? The feeling of evolving into a rare species, that is. I wasn't planning on hiding it from the start, but it seems that I can't deceive his eyes. Other than the fact that my fang had grown a bit, despite how my appearance hadn't changed at all, for him to recognize this in one look was a bit surprising. I can feel that this is the beginning. Green Goblin, Giric. I've heard of it from the elite goblins that left with you. How brave and wise the Blood Dagger clan is. You would have been fine moving together with me. Though he was playfully saying this, his eyes expressed otherwise. It seemed that he was secretly proposing that we should engrave honor on this land together, but I have a lot of things to do on this side. In the end, I received his words rather insignificantly. I think so too as well. After the conversation, we continued to clash every time. After evolving into this body, although it was easier to see the Green Goblin's attacks, he also noticed the increase in my strength and that I've become stronger. He released his own limitations and continued to make me roll on the ground. But, I was feeling good. It was because I could feel my body develop through this training. As such, time passed. I continued with my training, but I was still unable to do much in front of the elites. However, the fact that I could endure happily was because of the 3 days rest following the 4 days of training. With me as the center, the Blood Dagger clan relentlessly roamed around. We visited the spider graveyard once more, where I made it a wasteland, but observing that the Holy Order guards patrolling the place, we weren't able to hunt there. But that wasn't the only place where beginners and intermediates gathered. There were the lesser ghouls that lived in the land of the undead, where the humans were relatively easy to catch as they usually gather by the entrance of the forest. Since there were about groups of 5 or 6 hunting here, when we fought, we sent the same number of individuals as well. Occasionally, when we met adventurers that were difficult to confront, we avoided them, and if we thought that their level was something that we could deal with, then we would attack them in as a single unit. As such, 3 months went by, and in those 3 months, the humans categorized me as a named monster weapon merchant. It was probably a nickname that originated from the variety of useful weapons that I carried in my battles. This fact was coincidentally revealed when a guy was ambushed. Foo. Fuck, it's the weapon merchant. Run. Run. Thanks to this information of ambushing humans, appearing here and there, guys that were somewhat trustworthy began to adventure together, while those that weren't all fled. The one that displayed a fine performance was precisely Young Hei-An. It was thanks to her evolution into a rare species, Rafflesia auron. There was not much change on the outside. Except, the leaves in her lower body became larger, and the sweet aroma of that honey began to be fragrant. Back on Earth, Rafflesia was a plant that attracted flies by exuding the scent of rotten meat. But, this auron really gave off a fragrant smell. To say it plainly, she was much more dangerous than before. Though there's a limit to her use since it attracts all the humans from nearby, but those that come after smelling that fragrance were usually in a drunken, dazed state majority of the time. This was how we dealt care of stronger humans. Around this time also, Young Hei-An was categorized as a named monster as well. She was called Green Flower. Coincidentally, it seemed that some decent archers witnessed this hunting method from afar. Thanks to this method, our hunt became stealthier. Despite everything progressing smoothly, there were still a few things I wasn't happy about. I wasn't able to find Shin-Duk-Ho, and those murderous bastards anywhere, including Choi Solji. Of course, I never thought that it would be an easy task to find those two among countless beginners in this region, but after discovering magic swordsman Kim Dong-hyun, my expectations were problematically high. Anyhow, although I'm not sure who exactly those murderers are, I still remember their faces faintly. Of course, as for Shin-Duk-Ho, it was much clearer. Even if I were to live on this continent for 10 years, I would never forget. Nevertheless, not seeing them was merely regrettable. I thought every day, that if I would capture him, I would provide him with the worst, terrible pain ever, but not seeing him no matter where I search, there was nothing I could do. Since it wasn't like I could attack those castle walls. Just in case, I had searched around where Choi Solji and I were attacked as well. Maybe he hasn't left for an adventure yet. Or there was the possibility that he was working inside the city. Or, our Blood Dagger clan was roaming around too much, that they determined that it was safer to take precautionary measures by not leaving the city. Realizing this fact later on, I began to reduce the frequency of our hunts. Soon, bit by bit, beginner adventurers began to appear around the popular hunting grounds. Kim Pansuk was mumbling to himself after seeing posters that cautioned adventurers of the named monsters. Weapon Merchant and Green Flower attached to the bulletin board. Fuck. Lately, this vicinity has been an absolute mess. How are we supposed to eat and survive like this? Shouldn't the Holy Order do something about this? His good friend, Park Young-won nodded his head while continuing the conversation. Isn't that the reason why they set up guards at the spider graveyard, rumored to have been the site with the greatest casualties? Fuck, so what? They appear here and there, killing everyone, and then disappearing. Fucking bastards. Shoo. Park Young-won quietly brought his fingers to his own lips. There was no mistake that it meant to be careful about his words. Kim Pansuk nodded after realizing that he had been a bit emotional. There weren't just 1 or 2 people that had disappeared after mistakenly insulting the Holy Order. Though they publicly announced that there were cases of missing people, or deaths due to monsters, however, as those that commit dirty, they roughly know what was happening around here. After the situation had calmed down, Park Young-won let out a breath and opened his mouth again. Well, I'm not sure if it's due to the Holy Order, but those guys have been quiet lately. Maybe they're getting bored of this vicinity. Or maybe they might be clashing against the Green Goblin clan. Monsters fighting against each other. Well, humans do, so why can't monsters? What? Well, they are bastards that are crazy for blood. Anyways, how is it? That girl. Park Young-won thought about that girl. After refusing to enter as a concubine to those with power, they were ordered to work on this girl. He. What's so impressive about deceiving a bitch that has entered this place for only a year? She honestly trusts me. Today was the same. When I suggested we go on a mission together. She was purring in ecstasy, wondering when we'd be leaving. To be honest, if I wanted to, but with her though, I could have already slept with her a couple of times. Seeing Park Young-won's bluff, Kim Pan-suk couldn't help but snicker. Idiot. Why would that girl sleep with a bastard like you? She's the one that has even rejected the concubine spot of Red Cross's clan master. Anyhow, your problem is that boasting of yours. It's the truth. I just haven't touched her since. I find it more enjoyable forcefully. Fuck. Occasionally, they receive such tasks from those in power at times. It wasn't a hard task. After stepping on their will once, those rebellious, worthless freshmen, will then sell themselves as prostitutes once their normal summoned lives are crushed afterwards. The first time they received this task, of course they were extremely upset, but after continuing to do these tasks, they became numb, and started to actually enjoy these types of requests. They definitely didn't have any sort of guilt. They were willing to do anything to survive in this world. Fuck. But do we have to do this in the forest? Aren't there a lot of suitable places in the city? Do you know just how scary it is imagining that those monsters might come out while working? And to say that you enjoyed it for the thrill before. Idiot. Well, the Red Cross clan did say that they would provide a location once they settled down. Maybe they're worried of getting caught by the Holy Order. Isn't this good, as we get more danger money? TCH. And it's said that this Holy Order leader bastard is accompanied by a 15-year-old disciple. Trying to look as innocent as possible anyhow. From Kim Pan-suk's reckless comment, Park Young-won was extremely surprised as he frowned. Shut up, idiot. Fuck, if you ever saying something like that again. I'm going to kill you first. Kim Pan-suk quickly nodded after seeing an angry Park Young-won. In the end, an ant-like voice flowed out of Kim Pan-suk's mouth. I'm sorry. Fuck. Let's be cautious with our words. Alright. I'm sorry. Feeling somewhat apologetic after seeing Kim Pan-suk lowering his head, Park Young-won began to pat his back. Anyways, prepare to leave for tonight. Changshik and Dijun will be going with us as well. Although it's unfortunate having to divide the money amongst the four of us, but the forest has been so unsafe lately. The more people there are, the safer it is. Come to think of it, her talent isn't that bad, but how unfortunate that she's like that, right? Idiot. I never expected you to spit out such nonsense. Hey. She's coming. Shut up from now on. Alright. Kim Pan-suk began to turn his head. A woman looking to be in the thief class appeared and walked towards their direction. A height that wasn't short by anyone's caliber, she had the appearance of a beauty. Her fair white skin was very impressive. He couldn't help but realize why the clan master of the Red Cross was so fixated on that bitch. Feeling his thing harden from below, Kim Pan-suk began to smile. His friend, Park Young-won, will take care of this matter for him. Appa. Hey, Solji. Over here. As such, the two smiled. Afterward I swear if that idiot so much as touches her, I'll comment. Yeah, MC is definitely becoming more of a monster. He was quite detached to society as a whole when he was a human. Notice. 5th chapter PR afterward Psi 101. LMAO. A huge WL Xiaomi. To FR34KZ, whom will also be a PR for our mighty TL. Calvis. FR34KZ, greetings plebeians, your emperor has arrived. No, seriously guys. Psi 101, why aren't they bowing to this king? Ah. Translator. Calvi's proofreaders. Psi 101, FR34KZ. Chapter 33. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Appa, are we actually going today? Of course. It's not an impressive place, but the profit is good. But we're planning on going with 2 more people, hope you don't mind. What? Choi Solji widened her eyes as she looked extremely surprised. It seems that she wasn't satisfied having 2 more people she had no connection with joining. Having to add 2 more people on work that was already well prepared, it was no wonder that Park Youngwon became irritated. Kim Pan-suk, seeing Park Youngwon like this, slightly frowned. Unlike what Park Youngwon had mentioned, she was displaying quite a cautious side. Us. Usually, it wouldn't matter if only 3 people went. But you do know, right, Solji? Lately, how the situation outside is. Due to that weapon merchant bastard and green flower, it would be difficult going as 3. They're all fine guys. But still. It's been a while since we left for an adventure, right? We're not sure when they will appear again, so right now is the best timing to go out. In addition, it's a fixed number of people in the party that has always accompanied us. After seeing your fine display today, you will probably be included as well. I had recommended you. It was an appropriate excuse even from Kim Pan-suk's standpoint. With how things have settled down with Weapon Merchant and the Green Goblin clan, moving now was the right timing. Though it might be quiet now, it's uncertain when it'll be noisy again. It's good to continually describe in detail how there won't be another opportunity if not today. Choi Solji, her financial situation wouldn't be too good as well. She probably has ran out of silver and copper coins that she had received when she first arrived. And it's a fixed party. It was a proposition that was hard to refuse for a thief busy trying to survive day by day. Okay. Oh well. Stupid bitch, Kim Pan-suk nodded. Though she expressed some caution, she was still a freshman that hasn't lived here for more than a year. Usually, the first mistake of those that land here is trusting people too easily. Thanks to those idiots, they were able to survive doing this kind of work, but despite that, his thought of how stupid they were didn't change. So when are we leaving? Once the other 2 arrive, we'll depart immediately. Aha! As such, the 2 brought Choi Solji as they began to hang about restlessly around the bulletin board. Kim Pan-suk became fretful. He became worried that Choi Solji might escape since Lee Dijun and Kim Changshik were a bit late. Of course, the situation wasn't critical at all, but it seems that he was always somewhat nervous until he actually completed his work, bringing his target outside the city. Soon, after a while, he saw Kim Changshik and Lee Dijun walking over. Usually, he would curse and swear deliberately at them for why they were so late, but in front of Solji, he couldn't show such a risky appearance, so he just raised his hand and greeted them. Why were you so late? Ah. Sorry. I had something to do. Ah. Is this the thief who is accompanying us? Magician Kim Changshik. The reason why Kim Pan-suk and Park Youngwon called for him today. Though in terms of standards, his talent was a bit lower, but his unique ability that was developed due to his fearful nature, intuition, that he obtained, he was able to forebode ominous events in advance. Ah. Yes. I am the thief that has arrived for 1 year, Choi Solji. I look forward to working with you. Yes. I look forward to it. I am Kim Changshik, an intermediate magician. Hello. I am Lee Dijun, an intermediate archer. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Seeing their smiles, Kim Pan-suk couldn't help but snicker internally. Although Park Youngwon and himself were trash, those 2 weren't far off as well. I was a bit worried, but seeing that there's more people, I feel safe. Everyone's so nice as well, hee. To end up in a ridiculous place, we need to rely on each other to survive. As a Korean, isn't that normal? Being affectionate. Can I go with you all next time as well? Yes, of course. If you are to display a fine performance, that is. If there was a next time. Of course he had the thought of going together. Since she was a special girl that was not easy to see during work. As such, the party began to head out. After the castle guards had checked the number of people leaving, they began to walk towards the lawless area, deep into the forest. As he thought that they needed to walk a bit deeper, suddenly, Kim Changshik stopped in his tracks. Hey! What's wrong? Ugh! It's dangerous. Again. Kim Pansuk stared at Kim Changshik. It seems that his intuition had activated. A unique ability that didn't explain what kind of danger it was, or in which matter it would take place. Isn't it like last time where you said it was dangerous and just simply tripped over? It's already been a few days since we've seen any movement from the weapon merchant. Do you think he would appear now? Kim Pansuk began to desperately persuade the scared Kim Changshik that had withdrawn his body. His unique ability was definitely useful, but the extent to that was quite harsh. It would be fine in avoiding traps in a dungeon, but due to this guy, he could feel his body rather shrink up. Especially when having to raise one's guard in fear of useless events, it was quite tiring. Not sure of the reason, but if he thought that it was a useless foreboding, he would speak like that. Kim Pansuk furtively looked back. Choi Solji was looking on as expected. Having eye contact with himself, she did laugh, but she couldn't hide the anxiety that she had. She was fear-stricken after hearing the foreboding that Kim Changshik spoke of. Thanks to that, the leader of this team, Park Youngwon's expression wasn't looking too good. We can't ignore this. But it'll be fine. We can just move towards the least dangerous direction. Right. Changshik. Yeah. Park Youngwon was definitely the strongest amongst the bunch. With one sentence, Kim Changshik nodded, agreeing with him. Kim Changshik raised his hand and pointed towards the north. I think that direction is the best choice. Then we will head towards that direction. It's a place where undead monsters live, so it will be alright. The monsters instinctively evade the undead anyways. With Park Youngwon's words, it was already decided. Park Youngwon would normally reconsider once, but with Choi Solji's contorted expression and the fact that the weapon merchant has been inactive for a few days, he was a bit impatient. He thought that if we were to delay this work, he would receive quite a scolding from the pig of the Red Cross clan. Nothing will happen, Solji. He's just like that occasionally since he has a lot of fear. Really? Will it be okay? Of course, just believe in Appa. Okay. As such, the party resumed their walk. In order to prepare themselves from an ambush from either the weapon merchant or the Green Goblin clan, they had best put away items that were sparkling or useful weapons as much as possible, and had also called in Lee Dijun, an archer whose unique ability was related to reading trails and tracks. I don't think there are any tracks of goblins or orcs. As expected. What did I tell you? Changshik. There's nothing. Solji, are you a bit settled now? Yup. Kim Changshik also began to settle down from Lee Dijun's relieving words. The anxiety he had was gone, and Kim Pansuk could tell that the magician was taking peeks and glances at Choi Solji. Perverted bastard. However, he will be the first. He had already received permission from Park Youngwon. Seeing the appearance of Choi Solji scouting her surrounding was cute. The operation of this mission was solely for that one person holding onto her dagger tightly. Since this party had not received an official permit as an official party, he had no thought of accepting Choi Solji into their party at all. Since it would take half a day to reach the land where the undead lived, his bursting lust continued to pressure him. His work will be done in a very secretive place deep in the forest, a location where no one will see. Until then, they will act like a regular party. It definitely seems that the rumors were correct concerning the monsters not being fond of the undead. I can't find any traces of goblins at all. With this, we should be able to kill a few ghouls, and make quite a profit. How much can we earn? At least 5 silver per person. Solji huh? To be honest, Solji won't have much to do once we arrive. Her body might be a bit tired, but she can definitely endure it. You may not know it, but we don't have a thief in the party. We needed a thief, so all is well. An elegant speech. But, there was no mistake that they were imagining useless things. As such, the party gradually advanced towards the region of the undead. Even in the march, Dijun continued to mutter about how there were no traces of orc or goblins for half a day in discussing about the fixed party, causing Choi Solji to passionately stare at her dagger. Soon, we will arrive at the undead zone. I slowly made eye contact with Park Youngwon. Choose an appropriate place. It meant that the work was about to begin. But, killing the monsters in the vicinity was priority. Of course, this quiet period was thanks to Weapon Merchant and Green Flower. As such, the party began cleaning up. Fireball. A small ball of fire flew out from Kim Changshik's hands as flames arose. Seeing the ghoul burning from the neck up, Choi Solji stabbed it with a contorted expression. You are very strong. Right. My condition today is especially good. You don't mind if we enter a bit further? Yes. I think it'll be alright. Worried about what to do if he was terrified, seeing him full of confidence, Kim Pan-suk nodded. Well, if he did have a lot of fear, he wouldn't have followed from the start. When other parties began to disappear one by one from their sight, the 4 slowly began to move. Knocking her out from behind was the most comfortable method, but it seems there were none that wanted to finish their work with her in a fainted state. Rather, it seems that everyone wanted to see her screaming in attempts to stop in resistance while they thrust from behind. After some time, the party was in a location somewhat deep into the forest. Then, after the party had arrived at their destination, Park Youngwon was the first to open his mouth. Stupid bitch. Huh, what did you say, Appa? I called you a stupid bitch. Today, I'll be presenting to you a large lesson. This continent, per se. Don't trust anyone. Fuck, seeing you shake that booty like that, I thought I was going to go crazy. Finally, I can slap it. If not a fool, anyone would be able to roughly grasp what kind of situation was transpiring. From those words, Choi Solji was in a panic state. Choi Solji, panic-stricken, was trembling. Why? Why are you like this? Appa. You don't have to know. Just stay quiet and we'll end it as smoothly as possible. You don't like to be hurt, right? After concluding his remark, Choi Solji began to tightly grab her dagger. Seeing her extending that dagger, it seems that she was prepared to penetrate and escape towards this side. But, there was no escape path as we had her surrounded. By first crushing her wrists and ankles, the work should be comfortable. With Park Youngwon's nod, Kim Pan-suk rushed out. Having had the first promise, the others left it up to him to subdue her. Kaya. Choi Solji's scream echoed as a dagger flew. For a freshman, it was quite impressive, but it wasn't an attack that he couldn't block. Laughing, he deflected the dagger aside with his sword. Ah. Fuck. Fuck. Fuck, I knew this would happen. It seems that the deflected dagger has pierced Kim Changshik. Although the dagger was stuck in his chest, but since he had brought a potion, he could sufficiently recover. Rather, it was more comforting thinking that this was the event that his intuition had cautioned him of. There was no weapon merchant or green goblin in this sight. Turning away from Kim Changshik, he put on a lewd smile as he began to slowly approach Choi Solji. It was then. Fuck. Things are messed up. Prepare for battle. Park Youngwon's low whisper sounded off to Kim Pan-suk. TL afterward, these fucking bastards are a disgrace to society. No worse than animals, and not even on the level of green skins morally. PS changed Fong to Tusk as its singular and sounds more suitable. Comment. Yes, please MC. You really need to see this, and not let this event repeat again. Notice. Bonus. Oh, and thank you for the donation, really appreciate the coffee money. PR afterward Psy 101. Despicable Pigs. FR 34KZ. It's getting weirder. I hope these misfits die horribly, ahem, translator. Calvi's proofreaders. Psy 101, FR 34KZ. Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Solji. Ha. Why Kim Tae-sung? Perhaps, you want to do it again. No, girl, I got no money, AIE, of course this time I'll do it for free. How about it? No, that's not it. Let's talk. Talk. Ah, stop touching. Let's talk, shall we? What's wrong with you today? Fuck. You don't want to do it. I haven't seen you for a few days. Were you visiting Hae-young next door? Are you tired of me? No, that's not it. Do you think I have the money for that? It's already difficult enough coming here. Last time you met Hae-young, you asked me who I was. Isn't that right? Even if you do fuck other bitches, I told you not to forget this side. No, that's not it at all. I just wanted to talk. Let's talk. Since we always just fuck, our relationship hasn't been making any progress. Well, alright, we can talk, I guess. You're really something. I haven't seen a bastard like you that would come here just to talk. The rest are desperate trying to finish. Come to think of it, that's fucked up. Alright, let's talk. What do you want to say? Well, really. I have nothing to say. It's just something I'm curious about. What is it? I wanted to ask why. Why you ended up in such a place. Didn't I specifically tell you not to ask such questions before? No, that's not it. But you said it was quite fine at first. It's natural for a bastard like me to live this kind of life, but you're pretty. And your personality doesn't really match this kind of work, I think. I told you before. How hard it is to live in the city with debt. I can't even go out to hunt. Losing money here and there, I had no choice but to enter here to survive. Although I do have plans to slowly prepare and resign here. Really? Yup. If I try. I could probably get out, I think. Well, if nothing else, I'll flee. Anyways, hey. Embrace me. Alright, come over here, child. Want to die? Who are you calling a child? Hee hee. It's warm. Yeah. It is warm. Hey. Yeah. No, it's nothing. How boring. Choi Solji. I really couldn't help but doubt my own eyes. I infused magic into my eyes just to confirm. It was definitely Choi Solji. Compared to her old self, her face was quite young looking. It was a very young appearance. Although it was obvious, but her face was extremely bright and energetic compared to her past self I met after 3 years in the continent. It seems this was before she personally experienced hardships. I thought that I did well to stop hunting and just walk around the vicinity. Though I haven't discovered my revenge target, Shin Duck.ho yet, but I was extremely elated to have found Choi Solji. I fixedly began to stare at Choi Solji. I had to imbue the magic in my eyes to the limit to barely confirm her face from this distance. But, despite that, I couldn't take my eyes off her. It seemed that she was preparing to leave for an adventure with 4 men. Although I couldn't properly pinpoint their location, I could definitely see one of them pointing north. Land of the Undead. There was no mistake, they were heading to the land of the undead. It was certain they were leaving for a hunt. As if I was staring at them too blatantly, MEV began to speak. Captain. A hunt. No. Koreak. I have a personal request, MEV. That girl, I want you to trail her from now on. It'll be hard to pursue with too many, so send a few back to the Green Goblin clan. Another human woman. MEV's voice was full of complaint, but I had no time to spare on her. Strangely, MEV's voice also sounded a bit happy, and in the end, my head became very complicated. If those men were possibly a fixed party with Choi Solji, attacking them would be extremely ambiguous. If I could, I would kill them all and bring Choi Solji over, but there was no reason why she would trust us. She'll probably remember me as a ruthless orc that killed all of her comrades, causing her be overly cautious with me forever. Since she had no clue the kind of person Kim Tae-sung was, it would be rather more realistic for her to attack me in revenge. I engraved the faces of the others in my mind as I began to slowly observe each one. They all looked familiar. But I couldn't remember that well. But, my attention suddenly became fixated on one guy. Park Youngwon, if my memories weren't wrong, it was definitely that Park Youngwon. I could definitely remember that guy's face. Human trash bastard, a guy that captures respectable freshmen, and sells them all to the Red Cross clan to the brothels. Fuck. Fuck this fucking bastard. I had finally realized why Choi Solji was in that place now. Of course I never knew since she never spoke about it once, but it was definitely because she was worried about me. Fucking bastards, they deserve to be beaten to death. She probably never spoke of this to me since I might have gone ahead to do something reckless in the Red Cross clan. She wouldn't have known if I had the courage to do so or not, but she was clearly worried for me at the time. Since it wasn't once or twice I had showed off in front of the girl that I had liked. When she had heard that guy was executed, she was strangely rejoicing, so I had thought that she might have been one of his victims, but I had never imagined it to be actually true. Naturally, I began to tightly bite my lips. I was boiling with rage, and felt like screaming this instant. No, I wanted to immediately rush forward, make a red river, and bring her back. MEV and Young Hae-yeon were extremely taken aback. It wasn't the same fighting spirit that emanated when I was staring at the Queen of the North. But it was a murderous bloodlust. It was a murderous intent, solely focused on wanting to kill. So much so that the clan members briefly trembled from it. Is something wrong? I roughly replied to her worried expression. No. It's nothing. Anyhow, we're pursuing those guys. The objective is the 4 men. And the other humans that enter the land of the undead. The hunt will end with that. Can I kill the female? That natural question came out of Young Hae-yeon, who had killed everyone, man or woman, without hesitation. But, after she spoke, before I knew it, I had tightly grabbed onto Young Hae's throat. Normally, I wouldn't have cared if it was any other instance. But that murderous intent in Young Hae's eyes were enough to agitate me. It was because I could recollect the death of Choi Solji. Instantaneously, my eyes became bloodshot. What? Kook. I'm so RRY. My actions were shocking, even for me. I was extremely agitated. Seeing Young Hae's face, whose eyes were brimming with tears, I slowly let go of her throat and spoke. Sorry. I think I was a bit agitated. Kook. Kook. Ah. No. It's fine. I was a bit careless, right? I'm sorry. Seeing her reply like that with a smile, I was even more apologetic, so I stroked her hair, which brought forth a smiling Young Hae-yeon. MEV was also surprised by my action, but she did not give much attention to it. Even though they were on the same side, it seems that Young Haeun's position, being between green skins and humans, was quite ambiguous. Anyhow, I began to continuously stare at Choi Solji. Though they did ponder a bit, they were now heading up north. After relocating a few of our members back to the Green Goblin tribe, we departed. The destination was the land of the undead. If Park Youngwon had truly selected Choi Solji as his work, he would act furtively. He would definitely drag Choi Solji to a place where no one was around. I couldn't help having such thoughts. My brain and chest was about to explode just from imagining it. I shook my head and cast my thoughts aside. I needed to remain cold, calm and collected. Not sure about battles, but in a hunt, it was perilous to be agitated. I looked at those guys once again. The rest of the three were okay, but Park Youngwon seemed to be the only useful one. In short, he was quite strong. They were definitely weaker than us, but for Choi Solji, it was clearly beyond her capabilities. I won't think about the aftermath. First, we need to rescue her. That was the greatest priority. What to do with her can come later after the rescue. Whether to let her live as a human or not. Or try to have her evolve like Young Hae-yeon, I couldn't quite come to a conclusion. Although I had wanted to bring her around out of sheer greed, I had a great desire to continue a good lasting relationship with her like in my previous life. As such, we commenced our movement. Despite this being a personal matter, for these guys to follow me, I was very grateful, but on the other hand, I also felt a bit of guilt. These simplistic guys would probably fight chanting for blood dagger, but in spite of all this, I found this situation to be a bit uncomfortable. After this battle, I decided that I would treat them better. Ah! It's the land of the undead. I don't like it. It seemed that the green skins physiologically disliked the undead. Even MEV's expression had somewhat soured as we advanced into the land of the undead. At this point, we decided to advance slowly. We had sent all of our warriors and swordsmen back to the Green Goblin clan, so the rest were all assassins. But, that was sufficient. We began to quietly kill of the humans in our sight. The achievements that we learned from the Green Goblin clan were being revealed. The guys were quietly moving in the dark, and then piercing their targets' necks from behind while covering their mouths. They would die without having the time to scream, attack, or counter. Park Youngwon definitely wasn't aware the Blood Dagger clan was approaching them. Their speed was slow. They too were clearing away the undead in their path, worried that Choi Solji might become frightened. It was a situation where I found my hands shaking. Fuck. I continued to swear internally. In the end, they had arrived at their destination. I saw a man I could not identify approach Choi Solji with a sword. Subconsciously, I began gnashing. I was abruptly filled with rage and my eyes reddened. I had somewhat forgotten that I was in hiding. Without knowing it, I was staring at those guys with reddened eyes holding up my large greatsword. I raised my hand to the clan assassins. A silent signal saying not to participate in this battle. They nodded and stared at me. Kariak. It wouldn't be long before the rage I was containing burst out. I will rush and kill them all. My actions preceded my thoughts as I found myself rushing towards them with murderous intent. Fuck. Things are messed up. Prepare for battle. TL afterward. How savage. Grabbing Young Haeun's throat up like that. Guess we all know who the clear frontrunner for main girl is. O and MC, please rip them to shreds. Unrecognizably so. PR afterward FR 34KZ, TSK, females make plebeians do foolish things, not this king though. TL afterward how savage. Grabbing Young Haeun's throat up like that. Guess we all know who the clear frontrunner for main waifu. O and MC, please rip them to shreds. Unrecognizably so. PS how come MEV isn't a named monster when Haeyeon is? Is it because she's an archer that fights in the shadows? Comment. This chapter is dedicated to the readers and comments so far. Seeing comments especially always puts a smile on my face. Thanks. Have a great weekend. PR afterward Psi 101. Despicable Pigs. FR 34KZ. TSK, females make plebeians do foolish things, not this king though. Translator. Calvi's Proofreaders. Psi 101, FR 34KZ. Chapter 35. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It would have been proper to handle the archer who was handing out a potion to the magician first. But due to my extreme rage, my brain failed to process properly to undertake such an action. First, that bastard who was threatening Choi Solji with a sword. Rip him to death. In a split second, I'd cut off his arm with my great sword. Quadaduk, the sound that ushered the severed man's arm was filled with terror as blood began to flow out of his arm. His arm had been sliced off in an instant. Ah! Hearing him scream was extremely pleasing to the ear. But, just ending it here would be too wasteful. I grabbed the other arm and began to pull it out. Though it wasn't easy to do so as an ancient orc, but I continued to infuse magic into my arm as I started to gradually rip off his arm, bit by bit. Ah! Ah! Save! Save me, save me! Young one! Young one! Ah! Naturally, his arm dropped onto the ground and blood simultaneously flowed out. I threw the ownerless arm towards the Blood Dagger clan's side, causing one of them to start eating it for his dinner had been served. Just like that, I began to stare at Park Young-won. Foo. Fuck. Things are messed. He looked around desperately, but it seemed he realized that there was already no retreat. Despite having my way with his comrade in my hands, realizing he had not attempted to rescue him meant he must have been truly frightened. It seems that he won't rush towards this side. This time, I took the leg of this unknown person. The man without arms was continually screaming. Ugh. Ah. Ah. There was no reason why my rage would be satisfied with just this. I shoved him straight down into the ground, and pulled out a leg. As such, a river of blood splattered across the ground in a piece of art. Carry-eek. A situation that transpired too fast for the humans to react. That magician who was having trouble breathing due to the dagger in his chest was staring at me, while the archer was trembling as he quickly withdrew his bowstring. Foo. Fuck. It's the weapon merchant. Weapon merchant. Not knowing what they were mumbling about, I signaled with my hands, and a few goblins to appear. Though they probably knew, I wanted for them to confirm the reality that there was no possible path of retreat. I motioned for Young Hae-yeon. As I previously mentioned, Choi Solji began to subdue them without causing any injury. Suddenly, the fragrance of Young Hae-yeon began to emanate. This critical fragrance not only paralyzed males, but also those of the same gender. Looking back, a grimacing Choi Solji began to have her sight blurred. As if she was scared, she was tightly holding onto her dagger as she bit her lips, which caused my body temperature to rise. Of course, the other three men looking here were completely awake. It was because I would never allow those bastards a comfortable death. Carry-eek. Ah. Ah. In the end, the archer who couldn't overcome his fear fired his bow, but it didn't reach me. I raised my great sword to the side and began to deflect his arrows, as his arrows helplessly bounced away. Sul. Suelji. I think Appa made a mistake. Alright. Let's just first take care of this beast. In the midst of this, Park Young-won was shamelessly trying to keep things in check as he spoke to Choi Solji. But, the Choi Solji drunk from Young Haeun's fragrance wouldn't be able to hear him at all. Foo. Fuck. Without receiving a response, he drew his sword and charged. Definitely, his foundation was well set. If it was my previous evolved body, it might have been quite a worthwhile victory. But, our current body specifications and abilities were completely different. He swung his sword towards me, but it ended with his sword flying away in vain. This was quite a nice match considering that he was a strength-type warrior. It was because there was no way he could overcome my strength. You fucking bitch. He swung his sword once more, but as expected, the guy flew away. His swordsmanship wasn't bad at all. But, the reach difference was too evident. He might have penetrated my defense if he was of the dexterity type, but he didn't have any sort of nimbleness. This time, I approached Park Young-won. This one was comfortable to deal with to send him flying, but the grudge I had for him was too large. Qua! A roar automatically escaped from my mouth as I subconsciously moved. As if he expected this, the man took his sword and rushed at me screaming as well. I blocked his frontal attack perfectly with my greatsword. My sight was blocked. But, it was likewise for him since he couldn't anticipate it. I quickly reached for a dagger and threw it out. Fuck. I'm not sure where it pierced him, but it definitely hit. As such, I slashed my greatsword down from above. Naturally his distorted face came into my eyes. The part where the dagger hit. Not bad. Shuyayaing, I didn't want him to die like this, so I did not wield my sword with an intent to cut. Rather, it was to land a huge blow onto his body. Though he was able to block it, he had already toppled onto the ground. Kwang. As expected, his body was beginning to crumble from the impact. Hack. His body became like a butterfly in those books of insects at the library. Satisfied, I chuckled as I began to approach the archer. It's proper for the main dish to be last. I had wondered suspiciously why arrows had not flown towards me, but it seemed that he was caught by the goblins while trying to flee. Girik. Girik. While slowly approaching that bastard, I saw the injured magician. I threw my great sword into his face. Quajik, soon his face and brain was split in two as blood flowed out. The magician died without having the chance to scream. The archer was desperately twisting his body, trying to escape the clutches of the goblins. Fuck. Fuck, let me go. Let me go. Fuck. It was impossible for him to escape despite twisting his body. How indecent. While thinking of ripping him to death, I thought it wouldn't be necessarily bad for the goblins and Young Heian to see some blood, so I shouted towards the clan. Kill him brutally. Girik. Girik. For blood dagger. Simultaneously, the goblins withdrew their daggers. The puk sounds began to continuously echo, but the most aggressive one was Young Heian. Not sure when she had chanted her spell, she was already having her roots enter the man's mouth as she began to absorb him. Hikakikekikakwek. The roots of the plant continued to ravage and run rampant in him, resulting in the roots eventually piercing out from his eyes, nose, and lastly his stomach. Queek. A screech that wasn't human-like began to echo, as he died on the spot. It was a scene that even caused chills to creep over me as I secretly stared at her. She looked very refreshed as if she was relieving stress. I moved my feet to Park Young-won once more, expressing my appetite. Seeing that gruesome execution by Young Heian, I had considered entrusting this matter to her, but this revenge was solely mine. Let me live. PL. Please. A pale, horrified face came into my sight. Despite knowing that I wouldn't understand him, he continued to plead. Let me live. I did not answer. Rather, I pulled out the dagger from his chest and began to plunge it into his body repeatedly. Hack. Ahk. Save. Save me, ahk. Those unpleasant puk sound continued to echo out to the surroundings. His screams were simultaneously sounding with those plunges, as if I was commanding a great orchestra. I never stabbed my dagger towards his critical points. To die just like that would be extremely disadvantageous for me. I began to continuously plunge my dagger into his arms and legs. Later, I discovered his groin. With my great sword, I began to start tap onto the thing. It seems he realized what I was about to do. He wasn't stupid not to know. No. No please. No. No oh. PL. Please. He was totally frightened. Despite his body being in a complete crippled mess, as if he wanted to protect it no matter what, he extended his arms towards his groin instinctively. Kariak. I playfully laughed as I pushed aside his arms and legs. Fucking bastard. It'll definitely be excruciating. Of course, it would be natural for it to be painful considering I was absolutely going to crush it. Just from the simple taps with my great sword caused him to pale and scream. He probably won't understand why he's receiving such torture, such brutality from this orc. But I had no mind to enlighten his current predicament. Kariak. It was truly an underserved death considering he was a pawn of the Red Cross clan. He will never die peacefully. Like that, I swung down my great sword onto his groin with all of my strength. Due to the size of my great sword, I couldn't properly see his very small thing attached to his testicles, nor feel anything. But the ongoing screams were real. Quajik. Hak. Hak. If I had not fixated his body, he would probably roll around in pain. Looking at this, I smiled satisfactorily as I began to spread the potion I bought from the tutorial store. I never imagined in my wildest dreams I would use this in such a way, but I thought it was worthwhile. Recollecting the potion earlier where the archer was spreading it onto the magician, I took that potion and began to forcefully feed it as well. A look that desired death. Though he didn't open his mouth, I raised his throat and continued to make it flow down into his mouth. Once again, the screams continued to echo as it was an extremely long night for him, but a very short one for myself as the night passed. TL afterward God, that was extremely satisfying, yet gruesome. I can't decide who had the worst death. It's either the archer or Youngwon for me. Poor Youngwon though. Losing his manhood before dying. Better than having roots ravage inside you, shivers asterisk. Hye-yeon is one brutal girl. Surprised how the magician died so mercifully though. He's the luckiest one out of the four for sure. PSMEV needs more screen time. Author, make it happen. Comment. Whoa, so many comments, and yeah, those cliffhangers, I actually enjoy them as long as I know the author hadn't ended the novel or series with one. Hope you all had an amazing, relaxing weekend as well. PR afterward Psy 101. Well, damn. That was brutal. Sure hope this does not frighten the girl ya saving their MC. FR34KZ, lost my appetite on this one. Translator. Calvi's proofreaders. Psy 101, FR34KZ. Chapter 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The bloody field was reminiscent of hell. Seeing Choi Solji stand absent-mindedly like that caused me to be somewhat uncomfortable, so I roughly wiped away the blood on her hair and face. Seeing her young appearance, from when she first entered the continent, caused my chest to pound. It wasn't simply due to her beauty at all. I was restless since it has been a long while since I was able to be so close to her. If I had realized that the blood would splash all the way here, I wouldn't have killed that bastard so brutally. Then, Choi Solji pupils began to recover a bit. It seems that she could somewhat resist Young Haeun's fragrance, which could completely control an intermediate adventurer. Young Haeun. I quickly called for Young Haeun. Ah. Yes. Understood. Young Haeun's expression towards me staring at Choi Solji was subtle. She could somewhat recognize that I cherished that girl very much, though she had no clue as to what my relationship with Choi Solji was exactly. Her eyes clearly displayed emotions of jealousy. But, she won't do anything reckless as long as I monitored her. Young Hye Eon was somewhat surprised, seeing that Choi Solji was able to resist her fragrance a bit. I'm not too certain if it is whether we are of the same sex. It's not as effective as I thought. So it's like that. After she finished speaking, she emitted her fragrance once more, causing Choi Solji's eyes to turn blank again. Since she was under the same effect previously, it took quite a while before returning her to that state. I nodded at Young Haeun's words. It definitely seems that the effect was halved for the same gender. Since I had caused such a scene, moving away from here was priority. But, I began to worry where I should take Choi Solji to. I would bring her to the Green Goblin clan's lands if I could, but it would be extremely rude to bring a human there when we were under their care. I couldn't cause a private nuisance, no matter the fact that each clan wouldn't interfere with each other's matters. Most of all, the decision rested on Choi Solji whether she would join us, though I wanted to discourage her from returning back to the city knowing her future as much as possible. She had luckily avoided a large crisis, but I was worried that things might not go well if she were to return to the city again. But, that thought can be discussed later. For now, we began to move to a place not far away from the Green Goblin clan's village. Since we could be attacked while moving, I retrieved the daggers and entrusted them to the goblins, allowing us to quickly reach our destination. MEV. Yeah. Take the rest of these children and return to the Green Goblin clan. Don't worry. I will be back by training day. Ah. Come back here once you return the subordinates back to the village. Ah. Okay, Captain. Deciding to keep Young Hye Eon was for the best. I had thought of sending Mi-V back, but thinking that I could reduce the vigilance between Mi-V and Young Hye Eon, I decided to call her back. It seems that Mi-V was extremely delighted with my words. Brightly smiling, she soon disappeared. Is she someone you know? A bit. Ah. As such, I stood in front of Choi Solji. Young Hye Eon had begun to build a cave that could cover us with wooden roots, as MEV began to wait alongside us after arriving for Choi Solji to wake up. I had no clue what to say. No, I was pondering if I should reveal that I could speak the human language. Transforming her into a green skin was the most refreshing method, but truthfully, I didn't want to do such a thing. I had no choice but to ponder, due to the extreme battle-crazed madness infused that I have in my body, and the violence and murderous intent that Young Hye Eon possessed. It was a ridiculous selfishness, but what I sincerely desired was for Choi Solji to remain as the old Choi Solji. As such, we continued to monitor Choi Solji after MEV had arrived. With a fairy and MEV inside the cave, I largely swallowed my saliva seeing that Solji's pupils were slowly returning back to normal. My heartbeats were gradually getting larger. No, it was as if my heart was about to burst. What should I do if she were to scream after seeing us? If she were to try and flee, what should I do? Hesitant thoughts continued to plague me. Kariak. This anxiety caused growls to come forth, totally waking Choi Solji up. The moment she opened her eyes, she stared directly at me. She recognized that she was surrounded by those so-called named monsters. But she was much calmer than I had thought. I'm not sure of the reason, but she knew that I wasn't trying to harm her. Thanks. Kariak. Though my conscience was hazy, I could see how you killed all of them. Very brutal. And I could somewhat recognize that you had no intent to attack me as well. She was somewhat afraid after saying that, she saw all those guys die. Though she trembled, it seems that she was able to settle down knowing that those guys were trying to do bad things to her. I nodded to her words. So after Choi Solji briefly displayed a surprised expression, she resumed her words. She was a bit cautious. It would be strange not to. It was certain that she hadn't heard of a monster that could understand human language. There was no such information in the education center as well. Suddenly, Choi Solji began to stare at me greatly surprised. You can understand me. I nodded once more. I wanted to open my mouth, but not sure why, the words didn't come out as well. Funny enough, my throat was a bit wound up. Fascinating. Definitely. No. As such, a miracle transpired for a clumsy freshman who hasn't been here for more than a year. It was no wonder why she would have such a face. It wasn't unreasonable for her to have that kind of expression. For her to be the female protagonist, saved by a named monster when this is not even Disney's Beauty and the Beast. It must be extremely alarming for her. Her curious expression displayed that she didn't see me as an enemy. Phew, thankfully I was able to well overcome that first starting introduction. I had thought that she would either scream or try to flee, but for her to receive our hospitality. It seems that having Fairy MEV and Choi Soolji present were able to somewhat play a role in lowering her guard. Young Hae Eon was staring towards, wondering what kind of conversation we were sharing. So. Why did you bring me here? I didn't exactly have a reply to that. Blatantly stating that I had come to save you, after reincarnating as a monster since we were in a relationship in our past lives. To say that would be extremely strange for anyone to hear. But, I really wanted to say it. Not realizing, my mouth was gasping at times. When I had decided to say this, it was then. Choi Solji opened her mouth once more. I can't continue to stay here. What emerged in my mind hearing those words was the human Choi Solji. A worried expression continued to circle around my face. Though we weren't trying to harm her, it seems that she was greatly worried that we were going to bound her to this place. I could not help but realize that Choi Solji and I can't be together after seeing that expression. Like 10 years ago, she was a perfect human. It was the first time I saw a human changing into a monster in my 10 years in Young Haeun's case. Whether it was only possible in the tutorial for a human to specially change her race into a monster. Or if one could evolve into a different species by killing humans together with the green skins. There was no information on it. If side effects were to appear while trying to change Choi Solji into a green skin, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. That honest, innocent face. It definitely wasn't suitable to this continent. I couldn't help but tightly bite my lips. For now, I will send her back to the city. However, there's a matter I must attend to beforehand. The task of increasing Choi Solji's specifications. Though I had thought she was naturally bluffing when she stated, I have some talent, feeling that magic quite well organized in her body, I couldn't help but confirm that her remark was actually true. In other words, she was at quite a decent level for a summoned who has only been here for 1 year. It was a bit ambiguous to compare her to the genius, the Queen of the North, or to an ancient orc gladiator of the rare species like me, but in an objective standpoint, she was either similar or just below Park Youngwon in terms of specifications. I could now see just how much talent Choi Solji, and how much I had grown stronger. Though my memory was dim, I could recollect that Park Youngwon had entered the continent roughly 4 years earlier. Which was 3 years earlier than Choi Solji. For an inexperienced, 1-year-old freshman to have similar magic compared to one 3 years earlier was extremely alarming. I'm not sure if she knows this herself, but she had quite a bright future as a summoned. Funny to say, but at this state, she was rather stronger than the previous Choi Solji. I nodded my head. Though I was lacking, I was willing to train Choi Solji. You're not going to let me go? I shook my head at Choi Solji. It was an expression that meant that I wasn't willing to send her back. I laughed joyfully at Choi Solji's words, and slowly rose my body up. Though I'm not sure how to train Choi Solji precisely, for now, I thought it was best to improve her shabby equipment. I took the blood-soaked dagger that I always carried around for emergencies, and handed it over to Choi Solji. Ha! This is for me. A curious expression greeted me once I nodded my head. It was an expression that was wondering why a monster was sharing such hospitality. I furtively grabbed Choi Solji's hands and pulled her outside. She was briefly alarmed, but soon slowly followed. "Mev, lend me your dagger." "Ha! You're going to kill her. Weren't you going to mate?" "No. It's not that. Just training." "Aha. All right. Just be careful and return it once you're done." She was somewhat worried after I had received a dagger from the fairy, but I raised my hands expressing that I had no intent to kill, and extended my dagger towards Choi Solji. A bit worried, she swallowed her saliva and muttered, "Training." To which I nodded, relieving her uneasiness. Not being able to clash physically like the green skin's way, I began to display the dagger techniques that I learned from the Green Goblin against the air. Of course it would look extremely clumsy in the eyes of Green Goblin, but I had thought this would be a great help to Choi Solji right now. Although the techniques weren't as good as I thought, they were quite plausible due to the skill of increased proficiency on all weapons that I received as an ancient orc gladiator. As if she noticed my intentions, she quietly looked on. Soon, though she clumsily moved her body, I was forced to realize that she was indeed talented. Afterward I would have been scarred if I had seen all of that like her. I wonder why she's so immune to it. And this chapter is much milder than the last. P.S. I never knew Choi Solji was that talented as a thief. O comment. I personally think they had it easy in terms of their deaths. At least they were able to die on that day. Afterward Psi 101. Girl meets boy, then the rest is daggers. Translator. Calvi's Proofreaders. Psi 101, FR 34 KZ. Chapter 37. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It might be a cliché, but she was absorbing the techniques like a sponge. Strictly speaking, her body was already prepared for everything. As if it had waited and prepared for this, she began to swing her dagger in a trance. What is this? Her hand dexterity wasn't ordinary. Even Mev was quite surprised. I had originally thought she was somewhat decent, she was truly strong. Even a 3-year-old child would be able to see that she was getting stronger. The Green Goblin's dagger techniques were based on strong wrists and strength in the fingers. Though I did not properly learn everything, I had understood up to this point. Changing the course of the dagger with your fingers. Or throw the dagger suddenly in the midst of jabbing. They were configured to provide the option of giving the opponent a critical injury. To be more precise, the weapon can be utilized to this extent if the body is developed to some extent. After analyzing everything, there was only one answer. It seems that Choi Solji has evolved quite a bit. If I recall, the last class Choi Solji had changed to was an intermediate thief. If today's event did not transpire, Choi Solji would definitely have been a famed thief in the continent. Soon, after a few hours, Choi Solji let down the blood-soaked dagger and opened her mouth towards me. "Thank you. I'm not sure why you're like this to me." I plainly nodded to Choi Solji's words. Hearing her words as she stared at me, my face automatically reddened. Seeing me like this, she spoke again. "Haha. Have you fallen for me? Is that why you're being so nice to me?" To be honest, that was the perfect answer. But to say it like that somewhat harmed my pride. No. I'm already taken. Hearing such an unexpected answer, my eyes reddened. I definitely never heard that she had a man in the past. Not sure if that guy was someone she was meeting on Earth, or a guy she began seeing once she entered the continent. I wasn't sure, but I couldn't help myself but get angry. Karayiak. L.C. Steam exuded from my nose as if I was a bit agitated. Choi Solji laughed as she continued to speak. It seems that she was totally assured after receiving the blood-soaked dagger and learning the Green Goblin dagger techniques. Ha ha ha, it's a joke. A joke. Aren't the fairy and green flower next to your girlfriends? You're quite insidious, aren't you? Not sure about Mev, but Young Hae Eon was definitely someone you could call my girlfriend. Seeing Young Hae Eon attentively listen to my conversation, and due to the previous accident I felt sorry for, I roughly, vaguely nodded my head. Even if you say Young Hae Eon wasn't my girlfriend, there was no instance of Choi Solji looking at me. To nod vaguely like that without any affirmation or refutation, Young Haeun's face reddened, causing Choi Solji to grab her stomach and laugh. Ha 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 ha. You guys are extremely interesting. So when can I go? Though I was a bit worried of sending her alone, I cautiously nodded my head. Of course, I didn't forget of extending my hand and raising 4 fingers. What? She wasn't able to understand at first, but as I continually roared, Koreak, while raising 4 fingers, soon Choi Solji understood. 4 days later. I nodded my head, and finally saw Choi Solji smiling. All right. So you're going to teach me then? Nodding once again, her face brightened a bit. Funny enough, I thought of working even harder in my hunts in order to provide better equipment for Choi Solji. As such, I nodded my head. Since we were in the deep forest, I brought Choi Solji to a forest close to the forest and parted after the following pledge. 4 days passed. Worried whether something had happened to Choi Solji in those 4 days, differently, she appeared fine. Because of the previous experience, it seems that she avoided leaving together with other guys. To be honest, her face looked extremely fine. Currently, the Holy Order was quite thorough with security, so the city should be quite safe. Frankly, in those 4 days, I worked my ass off capturing humans. Realizing that the beginner adventures were no longer effective for my growth, I searched for guys around my level even if their numbers were small. Quality over quantity. It was all to provide Choi Solji with useful equipment. Of course, there was also the objective of growing the Blood Dagger clan as well. I also did not forget to continue learning from the Green Goblin on the dagger. I had told Green Goblin that I wanted to firmly learn the foundation and basics of the dagger since I use so many weapons, but in truth, it was to teach Choi Solji. Thus, I fought the Green Goblin with only 1 dagger, and I was able to increase my proficiency thanks to the Green Goblin giving out hints here and there. Today as well. Koreak. As such, 1 week passed. We're going to hunt evil beasts today. Koreak. Another week passed. As a thief, the information was burnt into her mind. I began to teach her through MEV on how to hide and walk. At first, I had thought that it would be difficult for her to learn, but beyond my expectations, she was able to gradually, completely acquire those techniques. I couldn't help but think seeing Choi Solji like this that if she had met a proper teacher, she would have been much stronger. 3 months passed. Choi Solji frequently stared at the far mountains. I'm not too sure, but it seems that she wants to move to a different city. I also thought that if she were to live as a human, it would be best to select a different location than live in the western city AIA. The environment may be a bit harsh, but perhaps the north, where the Queen of the North is situated, is best. Since she was growing quickly, with her current ability, I had thought that she wouldn't resort to selling her body like she had before, but I was still worried. The Queen of the North that cherishes talent will probably utilize Choi Solji well. Choi Solji, as talented as she was diligent, and every time we met, she would practice what she had learned as much as possible. At this time, I felt that my humanity was slowly returning. Though there was a lot of training, there were equally as many breaks together. The most enjoyable time was when I would lean on the tree, Choi Solji would place her head on top of my lap. This is quite comfortable. Koreak. I felt that we could communicate despite not speaking, and occasionally when my old habits come back and my hands subconsciously climb on her body, she would swat it away and speak. I told you. I'm taken. Koreak. What? It wasn't a joke. Well. What do you think? Koreak. To be honest, the best times were when she would wash by the river after training. I would stare absent-mindedly, but as if noticing my lewd stare, she would sprinkle water on me and tell me to turn away. The longer we spent together and the stronger Choi Solji became, the more I could sense that we would soon part. My chest became stuffy, and my face became worse. As such, time flowed by a bit longer. Organize all the missing and bring the relevant documents over. The Red Clan master, Lee Youngdon, angrily kicked the office as he ordered his secretary. Yes. Master. Fuck. Is it possible to even conjure the frequent appearance patterns of these monsters just from organizing the missing and dead in the city? Is Holy Order everything? Can you capture the weapon merchant or Green Flower by being of the Holy Order? If they're so confident, do something about Green Goblin, will you? Fucking bastards. When it's annoying, they send everything over here. Just because they're a superior clan, they think it's alright to order us around like this. Fuck. Due to the angriness of Lee Youngdon, the rest of the administration team became busier. It wasn't hard to organize the number of deaths and missing people since he was managing the city entrance, but he was displeased more than anyone else when being given a command. Who? Fuck. Roughly bring over the largest recent case. No. Bring that over. The incident that happened in the land of the undead a few months ago. Yes. Master. Lee Youngdon sat on the comfortable chair and slowly read the deaths and missing people. To be honest, this action wasn't too meaningful. He wanted to know how Park Youngwon and Kim Pan-suk had died. It was due to boredom, and also his belated curiosity that emerged for these rather useful guys. He had turned away his attention after being rejected by Choi Solji due to the recently admitted concubine, but he was curious what had transpired. Park Youngwon, this bastard really died a miserable death. Woo. This weapon merchant bastard is truly vicious. Kim Pan-suk died pitifully as well. Lee Dijun is missing. Is this even missing? Fuck. Right. He's probably missing inside the weapon merchant's stomach. Haha. Thinking that his own joke was somewhat witty, Lee Youngdon continued to read the incident. The description of the body being gruesomely shredded, and his groin cut by a large greatsword caused chills to run down his spine. He continued to read about the victims, and soon he reached Choi Solji. Choi Solji, missing, puhaha. I knew this would happen. Lee Youngdon laughed pleasantly, forgetting that he had been angry moments ago. It was obvious that Choi Solji was taken by the monsters. Being eaten by them would be a relief. If she had not been eaten, it would have been happier for her to rather live as a prostitute with a ruined body, he thought. So you should have listened to my advice in the beginning. Right. Both the mind and body would be comfortable. To be idiotic enough. This is why bitches with strong pride won't work. Stupid bitch. Puhaha. Lee Youngdon, who refreshingly laughed, soon opened his mouth towards a clan member closest to him. Hey. Yes. What was the name of that bastard who asked us to let him into our clan every day? Shin. Something was it, I think. That friend came with a few people. Lee Youngdon slowly pondered, but he couldn't remember the name that well. The reason for searching that guy was simple. He needed another to naturally take care of this dirty work with the deaths of Park Youngwon, Kim Pan-suk, Kim Changshik, and Lee Dijun. It would definitely be wasteful in letting him into the clan, so by giving money like this, they were guys that could be used as consumables whenever. Ah. You mean Shin-duk.ho? That's right. Yeah. Does that guy come over these days? No. No, sir. Not sure what has happened, but a few months ago, we have not seen him. We began to not see him before Park Youngwon had entered the land of the undead and died. Sigh. Lately, these bastards have no spirit. Disposition. If he had continued come by, who knows what opportunity could knock. Once again, a clan member brought over a pile of documents, as Lee Youngdon read a bit of the files before throwing them by the sofa. The thrown files, one by one, fell onto the ground under the sofa as if not a coincidence, but Lee Young-don, briefly seeing this, turned his head as if he didn't care too much about it. Western City, AIA, Event Log. April 16, 5th Class Summon Shin Duk.Ho, 5th Class Summon Choi Solji, 5th Class Kim Duk-soo, 5th Class Summon Ju Jiang, Western Forest, exact location not uncovered. From the assault of weapon merchant in Green Flower, excluding Choi Solji, Shin Duk.Ho, Kim Duk-soo, Ju Jiang. All missing. Incident under confirmation process. TL afterward MC nodding that Hye-yeon is his girlfriend. Oh, if MV knew about this, I bet she would have rather been strangled lol. PS wait a second. Shin Duk.Ho. Why is he missing along with Choi Solji? Who are these guys? This isn't the incident that we read before. Notice. Just a heads up, I'm starting a new series called Dragon Poor, and taking a hiatus on Stone of Days for the time being. It's actually very similar to Dragon Poor, relevant to its setting and system, and we'll be uploading those at a near date. But this won't slow down the releases for Green Skin. PR afterward Psy 101. Girl meets boy, then the rest is daggers. Translator. Calvi's Proofreaders. Psy 101, FR 34KZ. Chapter 38. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The memories of the past slowly began to materialize. Usually, she thought of it often, but when she closed her eyes, she could clearly see his face. Solji. Ha. Why Kim Tae-sung? Perhaps, you want to do it again. No, girl, I got no money. AIE, of course this time I'll do it for free. How about it? No, that's not it. Let's talk. Talk. Ah, stop touching. Let's talk, shall we? What's wrong with you today? Fuck. You don't want to do it. I haven't seen you for a few days. Were you visiting Hye-young next door? Are you tired of me? No, that's not it. Do you think I have the money for that? It's already difficult enough coming here. Last time you met Hye-young, you asked me who I was. Isn't that right? Even if you do fuck other bitches, I told you not to forget this side. No, that's not it at all. I just wanted to talk. Let's talk. Since we always just fuck, our relationship hasn't been making any progress. I was a bit moved. No, to be honest, I was very moved by it. If you think about it now, I didn't understand why he didn't get angry at me at the time. It's not certain, but perhaps he had wanted to monopolize me for herself. Still, there was only you to honestly consider me seriously. That absent-minded appearance when he first entered this place was still memorable. A third-rate swordsman that carried a scrap steel sword, posing as an adventurer. He pretended that he was strong, but I knew he was not. That was the kind of man I loved. Of course there were no words such as, I like you or let's date spoken. It would be ridiculous and somewhat amusing to confess to him as one who was selling my body at this kind of place during this time, but meeting him occasionally like this was a joy in my life. I had hoped this happiness won't crumble. Funny enough, the guy had similar thoughts to me. It was because he was a third-rate swordsman without talent. Sometimes he would glance at me and mumble something, but then he would shut up. Though it would have been a bit distressful if I misunderstood, but I was about half certain that he had feelings for me. A very kind guy to like a cheap, used girl like me. Someone that easily trusted people, and a simplistic personality moved by useless things. Well, alright, we can talk, I guess. You're really something. I haven't seen a bastard like you that would come here just to talk. The rest are desperate trying to finish. Come to think of it, that's fucked up. Alright, let's talk. What do you want to say? Well, really. I have nothing to say. It's just something I'm curious about. What is it? I wanted to ask why. Why you ended up in such a place? I was very embarrassed by the question. I pretended to be honest, but I wanted to speak it truthfully. If I wasn't concerned that he would go and cause a ruckus by finding those guys and either getting injured or dying, then it was certain that I would say it. Didn't I specifically tell you not to ask such questions before? No, that's not it. But you said it was quite fine at first. It's natural for a bastard like me to live this kind of life, but you're pretty. And your personality doesn't really match this kind of work, I think. I told you before. How hard it is to live in a city with debt. I can't even go out to hunt. Losing money here and there, I had no choice but to enter here to survive. Although I do have plans to slowly prepare and resign here. Really? I could still recollect the guy's idiotic expression. As if he was extremely happy that I was preparing to quit, he was smiling agape. You couldn't even take me in this instant, so I wondered why he was smiling like that. Could it be that he was imagining the future like me? I thought that it was probably so. Yup. If I try, I could probably get out, I think. Well, if nothing else, I'll flee. Anyways, hey. Embrace me. Alright, come over here, child. Want to die? Who are you calling a child? Hee hee. It's warm. Yeah. It is warm. Hey. Yeah. No, it's nothing. How boring. He was going to say something. It definitely seemed that he was about to tell me that he loved me. He definitely would have said that he loved me. Choi Solji, as such. Recollecting that not long happy memory, slowly opened her eyes. It's cold. A cave filled with darkness in all sides. Since I couldn't enter the city, she had been living in a cave in the vicinity of the western forest by herself for over 3 months. Though it was a bit cold and uncomfortable, it was much more comfortable than the city. The reason for not entering the city was simple. That she was worried that she would get captured for the crimes she made. She wasn't worried about dying or receiving pain. Rather, she was worried that she couldn't complete her task after returning to this place. Firstly, luring those bitches was extremely simple. The murdering bitches that aimed for the summoned were weak, and with her current appearance, their vigilance was extremely dim. Though it was different from the future she knew, due to the fame of the named monsters, Weapon Merchant and Green Flower, testifying was extremely simple. I met the Weapon Merchant. I barely escaped. If she said something like this to the guards, they would nod their heads. It was probably there were an inflation of cases where the orcs would take the humans here and kill them. Since the goblins that followed Weapon Merchant mainly utilized daggers, it was very simple to leave similar traces. The problem was the second one, Park Young-won, Kim Pan-suk, and those other bitches. Thanks to the Weapon Merchant, there wasn't too much suspicion killing the first bastards that killed the man she loved, but this time, it was rather a bit more complicated. Her original targets were Park Young-won and Kim Pan-suk, the two of them. The reality that they would bring 2 more people for their safety, a magician and archer, was a bit different from the past. In fact, I could have delayed the schedule a bit later, but like Park Young-won mentioned, there might never be another time to have this kind of opportunity. They were trash. Like bastards anyways. The objective of the archer and magician accompanying Park Young-won and Kim Pan-suk was obvious. Recollecting the past, it was extremely hard to contain her rage, but in order to reach her objective, acting stupidly was a simple task. She currently possessed strength that she did not have in the past, and by using those guys that thought of her as a bonehead, achieving this goal was easier than eating cold porridge. Above all, the one she loved wasn't in the city currently. She had to quickly finish her tasks here in the western city and check to confirm whether he was in a different city, so she couldn't afford to delay her plans. This was before she had met that peculiar orc, that is. Thanks to this, she was thankful and also resented the magician who had that strange unique ability on foreboding danger. The thankful part was allowing her to meet Weapon Merchant. If they had originally went to the destination before instead of going to the land of the undead, they wouldn't have died so simply. Like those first guys currently locked up inside. She couldn't help but think that the unique ability the magician possessed was quite useful. Wherever they went, he knew that it would become much more perilous. Though the weapon merchant had cruelly dealt with those bastards, it was not enough. If it were her, she wouldn't have let them die on the spot. Choi Solji slowly began to lift her body. Thinking of those guys again, the rage had filled her. EUB EUB. 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 Hearing Choi Solji moving, the guys inside began to scream. Their voices couldn't be heard properly since they were biting on something, but it was as if they were trying to say how frightened they were of the current situation. Choi Solji began releasing the gag of the guy closest to her. It was because she realized just how pleasing it was hearing these screams after finishing the few tasks she had. Please. Let me live. No, please, please kill me. Please. Choi Solji smiled seeing the fear-stricken guy's face. Soon, Choi Solji opened her mouth casuing the guy to nod. Shin-duck.ho. Yes, yes. Yes. Do you know why you are locked up here right now? Of course. Of course. I had done bad things in the past. Very bad things. Speak. So I betrayed a man named Kim Tae-sung. Yes, betrayed. Betrayed. And I plunged a sword into Choi Solji. That's right. It was extremely painful. But what was more distressing was watching Kim Tae-sung running with a blade pierced through his chest. With a sad face, she began to slowly look around the surroundings. Since she wasn't quite used to this kind of work, she saw the corpse of a guy dead in her sight. Choi Solji began to stare at Shin-duck.ho once again. He had no thoughts of repenting. Rather, what English is this? It was an expression of what kind of nonsense I was saying. Of course Choi Solji knew that Shin-duck.ho couldn't possibly remember the things he committed in his previous life. But, there was no other way of settling her anger other than this. You. Do you really know? Yes. Yes, of course. Of course. Lies. Your eyes don't say it's true. Choi Solji picked up the dagger. Shin-duck.ho's body was already in tatters. But since she took care of him so well, he can live healthily for at least another month. The effect of the potions that were purchased from the item store were quite nice. Once she held the dagger, Shin-duck.ho began to twist his body as he began to scream. Foo. Fuck. Fuck, I don't know Kim Tae-sung or whoever fuck. Sniff. Sniff. Why are you doing this to me, fuck? See. You were lying. Choi Solji brought her dagger and extended it towards him. The other two guys behind were also beginning to scream as they watched. Puk, those unpleasant sounds caused the others to tremble as well. Ahk. Ahk. I'm so. Ahk. This wasn't necessarily torture. It was just a random behavior of extending the dagger to relieve one's anger. But she knew the truth of what was the most fearful, what was the most painful. They all knew that they won't die simply due to the potions that she had bought with her accumulated points. She didn't prefer blood splashing, so had to very carefully. A few hours later of bothering him, the guy was lying on the floor. Her stress was somewhat relieved and the guys behind him had peed in fear, so she decided to stop for the day. After feeding him a potion, she gagged him once more. The other guys hanging in the air couldn't resist. Choi Solji cheerfully spoke to the gagged guys. Guys. EUB. EUB. About Kim Tae-sung. He definitely returned right. Just things are a bit complicated, so he's in another place. From Choi Solji's question, Shin-duck.ho and the other two guys nodded readily. Seeing those responses, she couldn't help but laugh. I look forward to it. TL afterward. Is it me or is this a rated R version of what girls do to men in Dressrosa of One Piece? Phew, that's some brutal torture, shivers asterisk. Kids, this is why you need to be good. Treat others as you want to be treated. PR afterward. FR34KZ, scary women in his arc. TL afterward. Is it me or is this a rated R version of what girls do to men in Dressrosa of One Piece? Phew, that's some brutal torture, shivers asterisk. Kids, this is why you need to be good. Treat others as you want to be treated. P.S. Is it just me or is Solji the closest definition to a Yandere here? Holy, now that's real torture, huh? Comment. To clarify, Shinduck.ho was the leader along with a group or player murderers that stabbed MC and Solji in Chapter 1. PR afterward. FR34KZ, scary women in his arc. Translator. Calvi's proofreaders. Psi 101, FR34KZ. Chapter 39. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Choi Solji slowly moved her body. There was about 3 days left until she had to meet the weapon merchant, but she had some things to do. She was a bit dissatisfied that she had to show this kind of appearance, as she was very sorry to Kim Tae-sung, but she changed into exposing, tattered clothes as Choi Solji headed out of the cave. As you don't know what will happen in the future, make the most of what you currently have. Sorry Tae-sung. But I can't help it. She originally intended to leave the western city after finishing up with Park Young-won and Kim Pan-suk, but after meeting the weapon merchant, she had no choice but to adjust her plans. After already experiencing this world once, she knew that there were the strong in the continent, and so she did her best trying to grow during the tutorial. Though it wasn't as much as she expected, she had grown a lot by killing many of the goblins. And the monster's dagger proficiency was well suitable for her growth. She could feel herself growing quickly. Not sure what on earth the orc was raising her for, but she was being trained. It had even gave her an item as a present. The blood-soaked dagger and the winged boots that she currently wore were gifted by the orc. These items were not obtainable in the human item store. The items probably came out from the humans he had hunted. Or maybe the source of these were from a dungeon. Naturally, learning other skills and miscellaneous subtle techniques from the monsters excluding dagger proficiency caused me to endure a bit longer, and be more readily prepared for my next target. Choi Solji's greatest target was definitely obtaining revenge against the Saint Sword. She didn't care whether she had malice or not. However, just the fact alone that she had miserably betrayed Kim Tae-sung's expectations was sufficiently enough for her to die, she thought. She had trouble settling her killing intent after occasionally seeing her joyfully laugh as she walked in the city. But she will endure. For that day to come. That death-deserving bitch. Funny as it may be, the fact that Kim Tae-sung had shown favor towards her, though small, still remained in her mind. However, this wasn't a mission that could be completed at the moment. The Saint Sword was strong. No question needed to be asked of the holy knights protecting her. They were levels different from her. Though she can't fully recollect, but in a bit, the western city AIA will wage in war with another city. The best choice was for her to find Kim Tae-sung. That was only one of her worries though. Maybe. If Kim Tae-sung hadn't arrived here yet. Or maybe he experienced an accident in the tutorial. She definitely remembered that Kim Tae-sung was first summoned in the western city AIA. It was obvious that she had already searched everywhere, including the education center here and there. You can't imagine just how discouraged she was in being unable to discover him. Her personality was a bit twisted, so it was probably why she was thinking like this. He's here. He's definitely here somewhere. There's no mistake, he's alive. He's definitely alive. That voice came out before she knew it. Closing her mouth once more, she began to search for her prey. She wasn't hunting any evil beasts or monsters. Rather, what she was hunting were humans. And it was a raid mainly for beginners. In front of her was a party configured of 3 men. She felt no guilt. She thought of the western city that deserted both her and Kim Tae-sung miserably as a great enemy, and above all, this was an inevitable decision that she had to make in order to lure out her second goal, the Red Cross clan master Lee Youngdon. Let's step back a little. She was able to see the appearances of those guys hunting evil beasts. Regrettably, one of them was quite fine in level. The magic he was using was quite fine. He was probably a safeguard to protect novices due to the recent noisy events in the forest. But, it didn't really matter. Choi Solji put on her mask. It didn't literally mean that she put on a mask. It was just that she was acting differently than her usual self. Choi Solji rushed out and shouted. Hey! Hey! Please help! Due to the weapon merchant and the goblins. The party has. To be honest, there were no injuries on her body. But if a girl with messy hair ran in torn clothes with blood, anyone would believe it to be true. Especially the parties that were hunting here, that is. Foo. Fuck, I've heard that it was quiet lately. Is it nearby? Changsu, what should we do? Though the beginners believed my words, the magician as expected looked on suspiciously. You, state your identity. 5th. I am 5th class Summon Choi Hee-young. I live in the back alleys of the slums. But an oppa I knew asked me to hunt with him. The person that lived in the back alleys of the slums was her previous self that lived as a prostitute. He probably knew what kind of oppa she was referring to roughly. As expected, after the magician briefly pondered, he opened his mouth. We will quickly return to the city. While trying to rescue the party, we will die as well. Take the girl. We will immediately go back to AIA. Ah. Alright. Choi Solji, as if she was exhausted, sat down on the floor. Seeing the 2 men with reddened faces approach to help support her, she withdrew more strength from her body. The guys who grabbed her arms from both sides began to slowly move her towards the magician, as he began to investigate her appearance from top to bottom. I haven't seen a face like yours yet. Ah. Well. I have been recently admitted. Later, I will look for you then. Yes. As soon as the magician turned his back, Choi Solji pushed away the arms on both sides and immediately threw a dagger at the magician. The dagger that pierced through the wind. With both warriors being caught off guard at my side, there was no way for him to protect himself. Hearing the screeching wind, he desperately turned back, but... Foo. What? Sure. Puk, the dagger pierced through his forehead. Without being able to scream, he died. He didn't even have the time to chant a spell. He had an alarmed expression, as if he couldn't believe his eyes as he stared at Choi Solji. You. What are you? Seeing this event, the other guys were staring agape, wondering what was exactly happening. After throwing a second dagger at another guy, the last one became aware of the situation and screamed while trying to flee. She quickly chased him from behind and plunged the dagger into his throat. Puk sound entered her ear. HHGREEUK, perfectly using the method that the goblins under the weapon merchant used. Then, Choi Solji began to cut the corpses into a mess. Whether it was piercing the dagger here or there, or fabricating the same injury that the great sword carried by the weapon merchant would make. After cutting the corpses into a mess for a while, the situation was concluded. Afterwards, she had to retrieve the weapons. Like how the weapon merchant had retrieved weapons, she also followed the same method. Soon, Choi Solji entered her hideout cave with a heap of weapons greeting her. The work in the meantime was quite difficult, but there was definitely some value to it. She began to feel prideful of the stacked weapons piled in front of her. Choi Solji headed out once again. This time, she headed in the opposite direction. While stealthily moving her body, soon she found other prey. This time, she executed her method similarly again. After telling them to rescue her, she would act exhausted in front of the strongest guy, and after he totally dropped his guard, she would plunge the dagger into his neck. If necessary, she wouldn't hesitate to flirt with her beauty. After easily finishing up these other guys as well, she continued to repeat her work. The work of fabricating this incident as if it was done by the weapon merchant and those despicable goblins. This was what she had been working on for the last 3 months. To be precise, it was what she had worked on after encountering the weapon merchant. The dagger techniques that she learnt, and the injuries that the great sword inflicted while he occasionally fought with evil beasts. Selecting the path of a thief, her observation skills were more advanced than others. Although not perfect, she could similarly mimic like the weapon merchant and the other goblins. The goal was definitely making repeated, frequent patterns. If it was a really high-level ranger or archer, or maybe a thief, they would be able to recognize that these traces were fabricated, but those high-level people in the Holy Order already had their hands full keeping in check the Green Goblin clan. They couldn't let the Green Goblin clan do as they pleased just because the beginner and intermediate adventurers asked them to hunt down the weapon merchant. If so, then the work would definitely be allotted to an affiliated clan. The possibility of entrusting this matter to the Red Cross clan that managed the Western Forest entrance was extremely high. The clan master that was rumored to be lazy wouldn't be able to work properly, especially, Li Yongdan, who was not comfortable even when he chose, was one that extremely abhorred troublesome work. The rangers and archers that come to investigate and write the incident logs would roughly determine it as the work of the weapon merchant, and soon they will dispatch personnel to hunt the weapon merchant. Choi Solji nodded. She will use whatever means to kill all of them. Though she hadn't meant to use the weapon merchant that cherished her, but seeing those foolish eyes, memories of Kim Tae-sung emerged within her, causing her to not be able to move on. But, the weapon merchant has to clash against the Red Cross clan. Choi Solji knew that the odds of this side were rising. As such, a few days passed, and the day had finally arrived for her to meet the weapon merchant. Good. Choi Solji carefully began moving towards the designated checkpoint that she had chosen to meet. And, after arriving, she was able to discover some traces. They were clearly the footprints of rangers or archers. They had come and gone. They had finally began dispatching personnel to resolve this accident that had a set pattern. They had no choice but to do so, she thought. On certain days, at nearly the same time, with a similar method, at a similar location, victims continued to appear here, so as long as the clan's archers weren't idiots, they would know that the weapon merchant would appear here at a similar time. The day of the battle was not far. Choi Solji sincerely nodded her head as she walked towards the weapon merchant. It was a good day, so she should accompany the guy a bit more, she thought, as she smiled unconsciously. TL afterward, damn. I must admit that's pretty cool. She's more of an assassin than a thief, well, she does steal weapons. Can we say that she's an assassin that evolved into a thief, like Maplestory? PS End of Choi Solji POV. Comment. As for the misunderstanding, if it did drag on for 100 chapters, I wouldn't be able to handle it myself. Thankfully, it only lasts a few more chapters before one side clears her misunderstanding. Don't think that's a spoiler, I think. Anyhow, thanks for the comments. Notice. Already the 5th chapter of the week. I'll consider uploading 1 or 2 more bonus chapters for the week if I get motivated from the comments/donations. Thanks. PR afterward, Psy 101. What a cunning strategy, definitely taking tips from Sun Tzu Art of War, translator. Calvi's proofreaders. Psy 101, FR 34KZ. Chapter 40. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Giric. Giric. Your skills are improving so fast. So much so that you could have chosen the path of an assassin. Green Goblin mumbled while looking at me. It is all due to Green Goblin. To be honest, my dagger techniques were continually improving thanks to Green Goblin, but Choi Solji also played a role in it. To Choi Solji that was growing at an alarming rate every day, I had to also forcefully improve myself to catch up over here as well with as much effort. In about 4 months, Choi Solji had changed significantly. If I didn't have the compensation of that improved weapon proficiency from the gladiator class and ancient orc species, it would have been beyond my ability to continue teaching at the same pace. Just like my previous life, I really didn't have talent in this one as well. If you look at it, it was due to the virtue of the system that I was growing quickly. It was continually providing me the opportunistic circumstances to grow with classes and species. I slowly put down my dagger. Green Goblin then spoke to me. So how is it? Is it enjoyable with that human girl? Kariak. It would have been strange if this news hadn't spread in the village, considering I was continuously meeting up with Choi Solji for a few months. The fact that I had a strange fetish spread in an instant. The female goblins of the Green Goblin clan sighed a lot while staring at me, and thus, Mev's pride became that much bolder. Though it seemed at first as if she had regretted a lot evolving into a fairy, but seeing me cling myself to Choi Solji, she was able to confirm that her decision was definitely not wrong. The amusing part was that Mev was not jealous. She was curious whether I just liked her, or whether she was a mating target. But, seeing that I was willing to give anything away, whether it was a liver or a bladder, she determined that Solji was not a mating target. Though I'm not precisely sure, I think that relationships between green skins are a bit different from humans. On the other hand, Young Hae Eon, who was originally a human, did not find Choi Solji helpful at all. No, it seems that her resentment towards human girls had become much larger. Though it didn't seem like she had regretted evolving into an Alron, but her hatred towards humans was real. The murders that she had committed to live before was now just an amusing hobby. Seeing her kill human women brutally by coiling them up with her roots was grotesque even for me. Of course, thanks to that, her approval rating was going up among the other goblins. I couldn't help but laugh imagining those goblins cheering while shouting Girik as the blood splattered into the air. I had went off track from Green Goblin's words, I think. I looked back at him again and spoke. Well. It is so. Not sure what was so funny, he was laughing pleasingly. Probably the fact that Blood Dagger was meeting with a human female was funny to him. If Goff had seen Green Goblin's current appearance, I couldn't help but think that he would laugh aloud while clapping his hands along with him as well. In their standards, it was ridiculous that a lion was courting a deer. Whenever he made that expression, I was embarrassed. So, I roughly fared a short farewell and parted. Come to think of it now, selecting the Green Goblin clan was an extremely lucky case. In a long while, I visited my giant wolf Abar and stroked his head once before leaving. Kariyiwing. As if he was pleased, she voiced a Korean before being unable to contain herself and follow towards my side. It's not bad to ride on top of her after a long time. Immediately after I went on her back, a Karung could be heard. Where we were headed was towards the Blood Dagger clan. For Blood Dagger. For Blood Dagger. Those guys screamed as they saw me. It wasn't just me that had definitely grown. Although there were none that had significantly got stronger by attaining a unique ability or race evolution, but they were quickly growing bit by bit. They had learned how to move the body as well as the dagger, that it weren't just assassins, but warriors and swordsmen that had learned stealth walking, as if they had equipped a unique ability. Especially the first and second swordsmen that had wanted to be an assassin despite being swordsmen were truly running around like assassins. They were growing as if their potential had burst. In order to not be caught up by them, I had worked even harder as well. The clan was becoming a little stronger like that. Kariak. I did not say anything towards them as I sat down together with Wolf Abar. It seems that everyone were carrying out their individual responsibilities after seeing me. To be honest, there wasn't much work to be done. For goblins, they were throwing around and playing with the gold coins, while others were raising their items high into the skies to brag. At this time, I thought those guys were cute like children. Lately, these guys were deeply engrossed in skipping stones. The look of those guys' faces were unforgettable when I had once thrown stones at a nearby river. Seeing the stones skip continually across the water, they were truly marveling that mystical scene. Truly, for Blood Dagger. Girick. Girick. Blood BL. For Blood Dagger. DST. Stones are jumping on the river. For Blood Dagger. They tried to mimic me and attempted to throw stones, but they were throwing the stones with brute strength, so of course they wouldn't bounce. In the end, after revealing some tips where they were able to perform this mystical experiment. As a result, there were many cases where minor disputes and conflicts were resolved through a game of skipping stones. After waiting a bit, Mivi and Young Hye-eon quietly sat beside me. Granting that Young Hye-eon was not, Mivi was continually holding the position of mistress of the clan, so at first she was a bit burdened by it, but in the end, it resulted with the clan operating better. To be honest, why I was spending time with these guys was due to MEV's advice. I'm not nitpicking on you playing with the human girl, but you need to be together with the clan as the chief. The decisive movement of the clan's direction was all handed over to me, but there were many cases where I had grouped several of them into one, and given advice to the green skins during their training. They definitely wouldn't know, but it seems that they were relieved to have me monitor them like this. Hunting together, being together, eating together. All of these were what they wanted. Of course, it would be natural for my image to rise as the chief. As such, I slowly began to think of the item shop in my head. I could feel my body suddenly being transported, but my actual body would probably be still with Young Hye-eon and MEV. Unlike the tutorial, it was only my mind that had transported. Soon, I could hear a voice. This place is the item shop. Please purchase the necessary items. Ancient Orc Gladiator, points of Blood Dagger will be confirmed. 15,000 points have been settled to Blood Dagger. I had thought that I had earned quite a bit, but that wasn't the case. The amount of humans I had killed, as well as my level should have been much more than in the tutorial, but it seems that there were a lot more bonus points provided in the tutorial as expected. But, the points were sufficient enough to buy the weapons I wanted. When I was a human, there were those that had stockpiled points, but they are earned regardless anyways. If you kill a strong opponent, more points would be received, so I thought it was an advantage personally to invest the points I keep earning. I slowly stared at the goblin in the store. As expected, in that small item shop was an irritated goblin. I'm busy, so hurry up and choose. Whether he wanted to sell or not, the way he addressed the customer was ridiculous. Whether this or that, he's the owner. Weapon store, cheap great sword, 10 points, ogre's tendon bow, 5,000, weapon, breaking long sword, 10,000 points, an honorable orc's blood axe, 15,000 points. The one I had targeted was the sword breaker, which was the weapon, breaking long sword. Until now, since I had wielded the blood-soaked dagger as well as the great sword that is too large to be a sword, I was really not fond of the cheap longsword I was using. Although I had originally intended to steal and use one from the humans, since I was hunting beginners and some that were a bit more useful, of course there would be none that were nice. Especially with those nonsensical rumors that if you had good equipment, you would be attacked by the weapon merchant, I wasn't able to see any useful weapons at all. Amongst the weapons, the one that caught my eye was this one. Weapon, breaking longsword, a longsword that breaks weapons very well. High durability. The chance of destroying the opponent's weapon will rise. The outer appearance was extremely simple. A normal-looking longsword with the hole of a saw blade was everything. It was noteworthy though that the hole was extremely deep. After placing the blade of the opponent into the hole, by pulling it with strength, one could break that weapon. As much as I can wield a lot of weapons, it was best for me to use good weapons like these that are versatile as much as possible. I began to swing the sword once. I had even considered thinking that I should carry more weapons that had the feature of breaking a sword rather than simply blocking one. As such, I continued to search through the items. I was going to buy an item that would increase Choi Solji's specifications. Of course, I only had 5,000 points left, so I couldn't really buy a very useful one, but I think I could purchase a nice armor or accessory at least. Armor shop, dirty leather armor, 10 points, rugged long-toothed tiger leather armor, 4,000 points, black dragon scale armor, 550,000 points. To be honest, I really wanted to buy that black dragon scale armor. But in order to accumulate this many points, I either had to enter an extremely high level dungeon or be the war hero of a large scale war, I think. I lowered my standards and decided to shop for a suitable option. Rugged long-toothed tiger leather armor, a strongly made leather armor made out of long-toothed tiger leather. Could possibly block an arrow from extremely far away. Warmth is its trait. Since I could catch on that Choi Solji wants to move to a different city, I think that this is the right one. But, the most important thing when buying an armor was size. I opened my mouth to the goblin merchant. Are there perhaps any sizes that fit human girls? What a strange orc. Of course we do. Have you finished selecting? Although this store doesn't reveal the secrets of this continent, at least the guy replies concerning the items. I nodded my head and decided to buy them. You have purchased the weapon, breaking longsword for 10,000 points. You have purchased the rugged long tooth for 4,000 points. Thank you for using it, friend. Come again. As such, my sight changed. Afterward, finally, back to the clan. MEV has matured, and is really becoming more likable. Probably my most favorite female character in the story. Not waifu yet, but we will see soon enough. But, that black dragon scale armor, asterisk drools, even I want to purchase one lol. P.S. The stones are jumping on the river. For blood dagger.